When we finished The Brood in 1978, and it came out in 79, things had changed in the investment market in Canada, and what used to be more or less based on people begging for money now turned into an avalanche of money coming from investors all over the place, and producers found this tax loophole and amplified that into not just an opportunity, but a golden opportunity. So money came out of the woodwork, and David had this great idea for his next film, which the money was coming from Montreal, so we shot it in Montreal. What usually happened with these capital cost allowance films, the tax break movies, is that by the end of the third quarter, investors would decide, okay, we have enough money, now we're going to put money into your movie, which meant October, November, December was when you shot your movies, even though they were set in the summer or some other time of year. So it got to be, at a certain point, uncomfortable for people in bikinis at the beach in November pretending it's a summer day. We see the water, we see the sun, what could be wrong? Well, it's 34 degrees, that's what's wrong, but eating ice cubes was a way to get rid of the breath. So Scanners started in the same kind of way. Everyone was ready, let's go, let's do this. 1979 was a big year for me. I had done a film in Puerto Rico called Tanya's Island, a softcore porn film that had a real cult following. Another film for a Canadian director called Bill Fruitt called Funeral Home, which was a straight-up slasher movie, kind of out of the box. I did a series called The World According to Nicholas, and then that was a busy year. The last film I did was Scanners. We started shooting in October in Montreal, and I remember distinctly that David's script was not finished. The money was, well, is it going to come? Is it going to, okay, here's the money, start shooting. So David was writing every night. For the first week of shooting, we shot more or less car rigs, just people driving around talking. We didn't have a script per se. Every night we would look at dailies and then go and see what the art department and the location department had chosen. And then, okay, well, we'll shoot there tomorrow. And it's now 9 o'clock at night. So the art department would work all night. Carol Spear and she was from Toronto and a Montreal crew. It was a complete bilingual, very Canadian film in that sense. 1979 was a breakthrough year for a lot of things. And then we'd shoot there the next day. So it was this kind of perpetually rolling 24-hour-a-day shoot, screen dailies, tech scout, go to bed, shoot the next day, and everyone was in an opposing schedule. So the pace of it was very strong. David had made decisions about casting, however, based on a film called The Rubber Gun Show that Alan Moyle had directed, and Stephen Lack was the star of that, playing this kind of crazy guy. As it turned out, Stephen actually was a crazy guy. He wasn't, in my view and a number of other people's views, wasn't an actor per se. And he had the heavy load of being the hero in this. Luckily, a kid from Toronto, same age as me at the time, whose name was Fred Ironside, changed it. His middle name was Michael, so it became Mike Ironside. He was the breakthrough guy. He became this, oh my God, who's this guy in Scanners? Patrick McGowan was a very powerful presence, true to his Irish heritage, somewhat unreliable after every liquid lunch, so we had to be careful what the morning's work entailed. And yet, this was all about a metempsychosilin, this incredible drug. And David, a lot of the themes that he would take, David's one of the only directors I know that has a degree in science, a Bachelor of Science, and ended up making films. So a lot of the themes of his films are medically inspired. Psychoplasmics in The Brood, the metempsychosilin in Scanners. It was a drug somewhat similar to thalidomide, which manifested itself. This was a pregnancy drug manufactured and sadly had side effects, mostly in the United Kingdom, where the side effects would be shortened limbs, children born with no arms but hands on their shoulders, things like that. And I think David theorized, what if there was a drug that did the same thing, that helped women through pregnancy, and the side effects were invisible, and it was all inside someone's head.
It created Scanners.
Yes.
What was interesting is this was David's theory, and we ended up shooting at a giant water treatment plant that had tanks of stuff, which was just purified water, but that was meant to be assembly lines filled of all these pills. It was a very, very complicated scene to shoot. We ended up shooting the headquarters of a metempsychosilin at a Swiss company called Hoffmann-La Roche, which at the time made the #1 medication in the world, which was Valium. It's interesting to note, 1979 Valium was #1, 1989 Lipitor is #1, 1999 Viagra is #1 drug in the world. What can we learn from this? We're staying alive, managing our anxiety and other physical attributes. Nonetheless, when it came to breakthrough stars, Jennifer O'Neill was the leading lady. I had a difficult time with her, and just on a personal note, I'm sure she's a wonderful actress. She's been married 7 times, so there's got to be some skill involved in that. When it came to shooting our very first day with her, she was a Maybelline cover girl, all kinds of stuff. She was the star of Summer 42. This was now the winter of 1979, somewhat different. The first day of shooting was in a doctor's office, and she was being scanned by a child inside a pregnant woman, and her nose bleeds, and she does a couple reactions. When we set the scene and I lit it with the stand-in sat the way Jennifer O'Neill sat. On action with Jennifer, she played the scene like this. So when we cut, I relit it slightly, and then she kept cheating her head further and further away from the key light. The key light is what gives an actress or an actor shape to their face, sparkle in their eyes. She kept trying to play it further and further away. I kept bringing the key around. Another light here. Finally, we got to move on. Day 1. Day 2, at the end of day 2, we saw the dailies from day 1. And the lights come up. She stands up and says, "That man," and points to me, says, "That man gave me raccoon eyes. I want that man fired." Day 2 of Scanners, out of a 10-week shoot in a lab in Montreal. So David, Claude Leroux, myself, and Jennifer O'Neill, and everybody else. So everyone else leaves except David, myself, and the producer. And the producer said, "Looks like we have a problem here." And David said, "Well, I understand if Mark's going to be fired, just let me know what plane he's going to be on. I'll be on the same one." So now I have to finish this shoot with this woman who wants me fired. And it wasn't a secret. It was one of those A2 brute kind of things. So I was stuck.
Sit down.
So all the way through this film, I had to ask, "Please ask Miss O'Neill to move an inch to her left and look toward," okay, "Please ask Miss O'Neill to sit down so we can," okay, it was endless. And this whole French crew, who didn't understand a word of English, apparently, would just roll their eyes, "Oh mon Dieu, all the things we had to do to get through a day. So when it came to our last night of shooting, which was just before Christmas, Jennifer was still with us. Everyone's going crazy to build this set, to light this set, to finish it. The guys in the grid, they're climbing everywhere. This is the moment she decides to level the score, because I've had to do this weird puppet act with pretending I didn't exist and she didn't exist and all that stuff. She looks me in the eye and says, "You cameraman, with your reflectors and your umbrellas and your eye lights, you don't know anything about beauty," and started jabbing me in the chest and just went off on me. For the whole shoot, we had done everything to light her so no shadows, raccoon eyes, none existed. It turned out these weren't shadows. I could tell that by day 2, much less day 50. These were dark circles under her eyes, and that's what it was. She didn't want the French-Canadian makeup girls to kind of, "Oh, help out this lady who needed it." I didn't need the static either, and she looked great, and we found a stride by day 3, but this animosity was still there.
What a pleasant surprise. You're very attractive.
Suddenly, she goes after me, and suddenly the set is dead quiet. And I look up at the grid, and there's like 50 guys looking. "Wait a minute, I thought you didn't understand English. Why are you listening to this?" So needless to say, it ended on a high note for me because this was Christmas. Everyone's giving each other Christmas presents. I had this giant box for Jennifer, all gift wrapped with a big bow. Inside, if you're familiar with stuffed animals, different kind of stuffed animal, German company, a giant raccoon, like literally giant thing in a big box. And it said, "Dear Jennifer, I only have eyes for you. Love, Mark." I don't think she opened it on the set, but we were shooting at Man of His World, this island Ile Saint-Hélène in the middle of the St. Lawrence, and there's the bridge, Jacques Cartier Bridge, that goes over that island. I had this vision of her in her limo and opening this up and throwing this raccoon out the window into the river with all the ice floes. What the hell? That was then.
Now I know what it feels like to die.
So Scanners was a strong visual story for me, because it wasn't a story about a father and a daughter. This was a descent into all different layers of corporate greed and power and lies and control. And Patrick McGoohan, in these great, great warehouses they found in old Montreal, with all these focus groups and scanning things with Stephen Black, it was a real free reign in that sense, because you've got a giant warehouse, you can light it any way you want, shafts of light here, pools of light there. It was great. Well, David was David in the sense that he was very methodical. There was no, I don't think there was any change in his style as much as the content required a change. So there were a lot of stunt scenes, a lot of much more elaborate shootout scenes. The scene where the bad guys, I'm blanking on everyone's name, but they end up in this warehouse with a gigantic head that one of the metempsychosis sufferers had tried to deal with his psychosis, and a big shootout with pump action shotguns. And David got into that kind of the power aspects of that, because these hired killers would go. Jerome Tibourgen was the Swiss stunt coordinator, and he played one of the killers. And it had a lot more style that just drew itself out of the storyline. And there's a whole scene where the bad guys come in, and there's a kind of a seance, not a seance, but a tea session where everyone's sitting cross-legged on the floor, and they come in and blast everybody. It was a new breakthrough for me. I'd never shot scenes like that, and I don't think David had. I don't think, certainly the Brood hadn't had a scene like that, or any scenes like that. The big breakthrough was Louis Del Grande, the opening scan-off between Michael and this professor who said, "Oh, try to scan me, I'll see what," and then it goes crazy, and his head explodes. So doing that was quite a breakthrough, because everything that we had done, that most effects people had done to make things explode, used a squib, which would show a spark in the middle of it. It didn't have this organic thing, it was obviously exploded. What were we going to do? The solution was we shot the setup and the aftermath to the head exploding in a CJEP in a community college in suburban Montreal. Then we shot the scene that preceded it with Louis Del Grande's head exploding. And we asked Louis, how would you contort yourself for this big thing? And he kind of goes like this. And okay, they made a whole wax thing with his head, the whole deal. They filled his brain with all this great fluid and blood and vermicelli and I don't know what it was, but it all looked like brain. But we couldn't get it to explode without seeing this spark. And Gary Zeller was the kind of the stunt coordinator, this crazy American from New York. And he said, okay, here's the deal. I've had it. You guys, this was our last head to blow up. And we were shooting in a warehouse. We just built a little facade. Otherwise, we were in a warehouse in old Montreal. And all the trucks were kind of parked inside this warehouse. He said, just roll the cameras and everybody get in their truck and look through the window, but close the windows. Okay, now what? What explosion is he? And he crawled behind Louis Del Grande with a double-barrel shotgun and blasted his head open. And at 128 frames, it was unbelievable. Next day in dailies was fantastic. And Pierre David said, oh, no, we have to reshoot this. And all the French-Canadian effects guys said, why? It's perfect. We'll get an X, which at the time was taboo for the drive-ins. Who knew? Midnight Cowboy won an X, got an X and won an Oscar, so who knows that it's such a bad thing, but we had to reshoot it. Well, it turned out the effects guys were so pissed at Pierre, and there was a lot of joie between them, like French-Canadian. So I don't know if it was every other Saturday, but I remember going back and we blew up the head again. The first head was made out of solid plaster, just pure white powder. Oh, I don't know what happened. Let's go again. Next one was filled with confetti. The third one was filled with mint jelly, just green shit everywhere. So we've run out of them. So in the end, what you saw in Scanners didn't get an X. Looked fantastic, and that was a breakthrough, I think, for David in expression. A story was one thing, but high impact things like that were quite another. The ending of the film between Stephen and Michael, the two brothers, was a reshoot. We shot that in April or May of the following year, 1980. I don't know what happened to the original ending, I've totally forgotten, but we went back to this pavilion at the old Expo 67 site, Man in His World. It was the Italian embassy. It was rebuilt, and we dressed it as this kind of weird corporate office. And the whole exploding head, same kind of procedure. I don't know if there's a double-barrel shotgun involved, but in the end, Stephen was replaced by this rubber latex kind of bust of him, and his eyes exploded and blood everywhere. That was just extremely complicated. Lots of plastic mat everywhere, lots of light to get the frame rate high enough to 128 frames. And story-wise, it was great because I think when David cut it together, he realized, oh, this is where it's going. Oh, the brothers, one is absorbed into the other, and this new generation is no longer linked by the genealogy from Patrick McGowan, but they are now one and the same. So that push in to Michael Ironside, and then Stephen Lack's voice comes out of him.
It's me, Kim. Cameron. I'm here.
All of these, the same with The Brood, it had this little, what now? Wait for the sequel. And the sequel did come with Scanners, but I don't think David was involved. He certainly didn't direct it. And I don't think David, when he wrote it, was, and then you write something, you shoot it, and it expands, and it reshapes itself. And then it says, well, we're going here for an ending. I don't know what you had in mind before, but now it's going here. And so you have to, and that was one of the first films I'd ever done. One of the first films I'd ever shot that needed a big recalculation for a reshoot, for an ending. It's pretty common now to shoot something, test it, and then reshoot it. I've been involved with some big hack jobs in that regard.
We've won. We've won.
That's all I can think of. 36 years ago, shit.